Woof, woof, woof. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Mere Mortals Meanderings. Yeah, that's a little hint of what's to come. This is the Mere Mortals podcast, and we do a Meanderings out here, live in South Bank, every, Saturday-ish, Sunday-ish?
Yeah, every weekend.
And we record a podcast where we're doing philosophy in the park, deep conversations with a lighthearted touch. Definitely more on the lighthearted today. Really lighthearted.
Yeah, okay.
You've got Kyron on this side of the microphone.
You've got one on the other side, folks.
One on the other side. And I'm going to dive in with a little bit about FOMO.
Okay, so, here we go. FOMO.
I've got some news to announce.
FOMO on the Hosky side.
As of an hour ago, the Hoskys, the HOSKY Cashgrab NFTs, 420,420. Dunskies. They are sold out.
So if you're out there thinking, damn, I've ran out, that was my chance for the last year or so to be getting Hosky NFTs.
You've had your...
The mint is over.
I've talked about it enough. I've made enough jokes. And... it did actually, first of all, there's a lot of things to talk about for it. It's I made a small video for the summit. Did you get to check that video out? No. It's these small little things where they announce like, oh, we're doing a little video competition type thing. You can submit something that's less than 45 seconds and, we'll put it in the probably like a compilation for the Cardano Summit, which is coming up in mid-November. So 19th, 20th of November. And, I had no intention of doing it. And then it was like, oh, this is your last chance, 4th of November. So it's the 5th today as of recording, 4th of November, which, one good thing about living in Australia is we always get that extra kind of 24 hours when people announce things like that. And I had a tiny bit of spare time last night. And I went, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'll quickly record this thing. And probably actually my best piece of acting to date. So I'm currently watching it as we speak, and I can see I can't hear it for some reason, the audio's not coming through, but I can see the acting coming through quite clearly. So I basically, my reenactment was about 25 seconds, and I kind of took it as like a presidential speech, and I was like, the reason I got into Hosky, what I expected from Hosky, and I had some prompts on what the video should be, and then I, a little side hint for those who are in the know, I set it up purposefully so I'd knock the bottle over with the stand and then act confused and do a salute. All brilliant acting, I should say. And man, that gave me so much joy. I rewatched that video that I made, I'm going to say 20 times.
Okay. Yeah. That's quite a bit.
But the thing that prompted me to do that and prompted me to get way too many cash grabs was the FOMO. And we haven't talked too much about FOMO before. And so I want to ask you, what's the thing that you FOMO'd into the most ever? Or that you felt the most FOMO for?
Ooh.
Because it's not, we're mere mortals, so we definitely feel the FOMO, and I'll admit that I've kind of felt it for Hosky in the past, but never too much, never too greatly. But probably the crypto last year was the most I've felt like a little bit of FOMO. It's like, I got to get in now because this stuff is revolutionary. It's gonna
get in.
Yeah. I want to get in while I still have a chance to get in. Whereas and that of course is the classic FOMO trait. Of course. I've got to miss out if I don't get in right now.
So I better get in.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was thinking just through of comparisons to the crypto space, but I don't think in the crypto that I FOMO'd in that much. I don't think it was a huge FOMO. The biggest one in the crypto really is the Women and Weapon Series 2, where I purchased like a heap. And I also kept on buying in the market. Even today, I still buy just because I know I feel like a good vibe for them.
By the way, that's not FOMO.
By the way, FYI, I'm the number 15 biggest holder of them in the whole market. So, is that FOMO? I don't know. I'm the 15th biggest holder.
I would love to announce that I'm the 15th biggest Hosky holder, but that is just absolutely not true. There are some
huge whales out there. So yeah, I guess I'm a whale in that space.
Yeah.
But previous to that, definitely from a financial perspective, early 2020, I was FOMOing hard when it came into the financial sector. This is pre-COVID, I could, in myself, I was like, this is the time to be investing. I don't know what was driving that fear of missing out, maybe in the circles that I was reading and listening to, and I was going gangbusters into that space, even as it was kind of coming down in the COVID-19 doldrums, I guess.
Yeah. What about on a social sphere?
Yeah, so a social sphere. So
fashion,
never fashion, but definitely
social media, perhaps.
No, none of that. Specifically, it would be like a drinking event or an event of going out. There'll definitely be a feeling of FOMO, or be wanting to be partaking in more rather than less. So here's the example. I'll talk about it. Why tonight we have we're going to have a gathering, and there's a feeling of FOMO of like not being there as opposed to being there, even though I'm injured, type of deal. So, even though the reasonable thing...
Injury story to come shortly.
Injury story to come, so tune into this. But yeah, so like, hey, I've got a little slight injury. There should be some recovery happening. But it's still FOMO in terms of like, recovery. I want to go and like participate and be around friends and whatnot. So there's definitely that for me as the mere mortal trait would be the social aspect that
Peter was saying we're very scientific, and I'm pretty sure I've seen studies indicating that alcohol boosts recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
Makes your muscles relaxed.
It binds the muscles in a stronger way when they're torn. So
it gives you energy.
Exactly.
Your body needs energy to live. Yeah.
Makes sense. It's got 7 calories per gram or whatever. So it's fantastic. In any case, I think that's probably the ones where I've probably FOMO'd in, and it would continue to FOMO in the hardest. Was there another example beside crypto for you?
Nothing.
Beside Hosky, I guess.
Like Hosky is definitely the closest I've had to anything related to FOMO. I'm trying to think back into the past when I was a kid. I've never been too worried about big events or things like that.
Actually, I do.
Fashion. I mean, look what I'm wearing. I'm obviously not a fashionable individual.
There was once actually a time when it's normally like a big sporting event, like the Olympics or Commonwealth Games or like the US Open or the Australian Open, where sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, especially when I was younger, I'd go through this FOMO period where I'd be like, I'm going to watch this for 10 hours today because I don't want to miss anything that's happening. Like, I want to see this sprinting and the swimming.
Cricket event or something.
Yeah, although, especially with the tennis. There was, I'm pretty sure it was the US Open where they had like all the tennis matches all at the same time. And I was like, okay, well, if I watch this for the next hour, and then I can watch this one for another hour, and I watch this for another hour, and I won't miss any of the games. So you can get this propensity, for me at least, to fear of missing out and watching them a lot. So that's probably the only other example as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was even trying to think whilst traveling. I was always pretty planned, pretty meticulous, and so it's. I think you need to have a bit of a spontaneous nature to really feel it, to allow yourself to deviate from the kind of path you've set.
The fear of missing out. So going back to the 420. So now all the Hosky NFTs are completed. The presentation's about to happen. What's on the frontier for Hoskies now? What's the idea?
I have no idea, man.
Is there a sense of sadness that there's no more coming out?
Oh yeah, man. There's the one of the guys, the Big Lahosky, who is kind of
Big Lahosky.
He's the one who is one of the kind of artists in it, and they have done from what you've probably seen when they first came out, which was the real pixelated stuff. They're very creative, and they do all sorts of fun puns and the April Fools, the rugging and things like that. So I think there will be a feeling of missing out, but I don't know. They always come up with wacky shit like the shitties. It's hilarious because the marketing from day one has just been bang fucking on, man. They have the guy Hosky, the mysterious Hosky. He's really good at what he does. Yeah, he's the sort of guy where I imagine he could use this on a resume and be like, you want a brand promoted? I know how to promote a brand.
Build a network and stuff like that. Like, I've built this network.
Yep. So look, I honestly don't know. I hope there's some things, and there's a lot of people, and more people have joined now than ever. I think Hosky is now in 90,000 wallets.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a fair chunk.
That's huge. Fair
chunk. And the cash grabs themselves, I believe, are across 10,000. So, that's a fair chunk.
So that's actually awesome.
There's enough people with I don't know, I hesitate to say economic interest, but it's literally in their wallet, so there is some sort of interest in it. But yeah, honestly, like reflecting back upon it, what a fun time! What an absolute fun time! Even the prompting of me to make that video, the amount of joy
you got just from rewatching it,
just from rewatching this video I made last night. I was like, fucking everything was perfect. The way I knocked the bottle over and it rolled while I'm. Oh man, so much fun. So
there's a lot of enjoyment that's come out of the back of that.
I'm literally, this is the most spontaneous. If you'd asked me, okay, Kyron, what's going to force you to do some things that you know that you lack in? You know you lack in spontaneity, creativity, acting. In terms of the ocean, the big 5 traits, my creativity level, openness to. I think I'm kind of open to experiences, but there's a part of that which encompasses creativity. When I did that, I was 0%, 0 or 1 percentile. I was so far low down on it. This has actually been the thing that has prompted me
to do something,
to be probably the most creative I've ever been. I'm an artist. My work's on the blockchain. Just if you didn't know that.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Which is amazing, right? 'Cause again, we talk about parts we've talked of, what some of the values that being a participant on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and the NFTs, CNFTs, etc. And what's not often talked about is, again, sense of community, the participation, the ability to be creative when you might not be a creative person, and so it just creates it to be an outlet.
Another one of interest was I was listening to a podcast in 2.0 today, and they were talking how since their inception of running everything up with a value for value, lightning payments, direct peer-to-peer, using the podcasting as a medium, they put they said $1,500 into their node, and they haven't added any more since. They've just been able to survive and thrive through the circulating economy of sending sats back and forth.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting, since me putting in probably about 100 AUD in, I haven't added more since. Everything that I've been doing in terms of boosting and the amount levels that I've been boosting have gradually risen. I used to stream at 5 sats a minute. I'm up to 15 now. My average boost probably used to be 1,000, 2,000. They're getting close to probably average 5,000, something like that.
Yep.
So my level as well of not taking it out of the system as well as kind of
it's
increased.
also a great thing, yeah.
Similar to HOSKY, the more I've kind of used Cardano and HOSKY, it's not like I still haven't taken any profits
of HOSKY.
I haven't sold
system, I guess. Yeah.
I haven't sold a single thing. I've traded.
I've traded them
and played around, but yeah, it's almost like these things are so powerful because they kind of trap you and keep you in, but keep you in a good way. There's still the ability to exit. So I can exit the podcasting, I can take those sats out whenever I want. Same with the HOSKY, there's dexes I can use. But there's no iron fist, dragging you in, and now it's like,
you're stuck in
now.
here.
Yeah, now you're stuck here.
Yeah, which I really love that.
Yeah,
I think
it's
a good trend. So there you go, HOSKY bringing joy to the world.
The future, who knows? I do actually want to have Mr. HOSKY himself back on the podcast. Hopefully after the summit is. So
that'd be a great time.
Yeah, I'll.
He might know
news to come in the
future.
future.
Might recognize the video as well. So
the
video that you've made as well, if it gets played and stuff like that. So
well, he should know about it because I had to upload a really crappy quality onto the Discord, because Discord, unless you have Nitro, it's limited to 15 meg, and the video, like everything we do, is in 4K, so it was 127 or something like that.
Slightly too much.
So I was like,
if
you want the HD version, let me know, boss dog. Otherwise,
that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. No, well, look, I'm glad that HOSKY is bringing joy to the world.
Yeah, a lot of fun. No, not financial advice. Do not buy it. It's
going to stay at zero.
That's
the
plan. At zero. That's I want to. We hinted your injury.
Well, no. Before we actually get to that, 'cause I do have some news which I don't know if you're aware of it, because I only stumbled across it 3 days ago, which was Instagram. I've now gotten the pop up, at least for the Australian folks, and so if you're a listener from the US, you might have seen this already, about NFTs and the ability to interact with NFTs. And I thought it was just going to be at the level of showcasing your NFT
as a
like Twitter does, like a profile pic. However, they're not doing that. what they are, well,
Buy
they
and sell
are
them?
doing that, but they're also allowing you to buy and sell through Instagram, I guess it's like a third-party connector, but leveraging back to OpenSea and a few other places, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But they dropped the big bombshell of it's going to be using predominantly Matic, Polygon for it, which caused Polygon to absolutely go up through the absolute roof. So I actually took quite a few profits out of Polygon because I think I've had Polygon for close on when I first initially bought NFTs. Really, like I bought some Polygon then. And I've been sitting there earning like APY at like 12 point something % for forever. So transitioned that to Bitcoin
on Celsius.
No. I transitioned that to Bitcoin actually, which this is an interesting side conversation. So one, I just think that's pretty interesting to see that now it's like moving into like the Instagram and a wider population, which will be interesting to see. But
Reddit's huge as well.
There was a point there where I was like, okay, now I can transfer quite a bit into Ethereum. I could buy quite a few NFTs if I'd like to, or but something. And it might be what I'm listening to at the moment, which is a lot of Peter McCormack and a few other like very not specifically maxi, but very focused on Bitcoin itself. Where I was like, no, that's where I want to put this money towards. Like that's going to have to go to Bitcoin. So. I think I'm slowly shifting the mindset now again to, I've still got quite a few coins in different areas, but the, not sole focus, but the refocus into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin as a key asset holder. So
still my view, it's the only cryptocurrency. It's the only thing I'd be comfortable calling a currency. All the others I view as crypto assets of some sort.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of the money aspect, that's yeah. It's kind of like stocks and money. Well, stocks aren't. They're kind of like it. There's a dollar denominated to them, but it doesn't really work as quickly as I sold some stocks of something the other day, and they're in this pending zone at the moment where I have access to them, but I don't have access to them.
Yeah, I hate that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
man.
all sorts of the stock brokerage I'm with and have been with for ages is now undergoing they switched over, and so the account that I now have with Suncorp is now getting chucked onto some other thing. So now I've got a new bank to deal with, and it's like it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is like, oh man, this if I just have one private key and one wallet, this would be a whole lot easier.
It would be a whole lot easier. even to the point that I'm starting to think about
getting windy.
And this is Australia's side. But starting to get close to the possibility of you doing, looking after your own super, and if the Bitcoin ETFs and that work out well, putting a portion of your super into that as well. So that sort of mentality.
I never really understood the desire for ETFs like that until I then looked a bit harder. It was like, oh, how much money is tied up in super and things
Lots
where.
of money.
I have control of that money, but not really. The only time I could have done anything was take it out during COVID when there was some relaxations of the rules here in Australia.
Yep.
Which I didn't. But yeah, if there was an ETF, I could direct to that company or whoever holds my super to
go and invest in there. So
fucking put it in Bitcoin, motherfuckers.
Exactly. So anyways, all sorts of interesting stuff. It seems to be happening
in Bitcoin, in a Bitcoin ETF. It is a different thing.
It is, but yeah. So lots of interesting stuff happening in that world. But yes, as you mentioned, talking about, I said it earlier about the injury. So here's the.
What have you done, man?
So here's the short. So I already kind of told you.
People, I am officially stronger than Juan.
Officially stronger
at this moment.
At this very moment. So look,
I actually don't think so. I think if there was a bench press here, I think you would
I'd still do it. I'd still for sure. But basically, for those at home, here's my little PSA for you guys, Immortalites. Do not attempt to bench at speed, huge contracting speed when you're not warmed up. So telling the long story short, in essence, I got to the gym and did not have much time, so already it was on me. It was a very heavy lifting day. The first piece was a heavy bench, 6x2, and I basically warmed up twice with the barbell, then went straight to, let's say, 60% of my 1 rep max, and then jumped up into 70, 80, 85% of 1 rep maxes at very little seconds of rest, very hard contractions of the chest muscle, and then basically at the top end, I just felt that twinge in the chest where, if you see some of those famous videos where people's chests gets torn off their pec and something like that. That was the feeling I was getting, and it did flash through my mind like that. Seeing that, I was able to rack it and kind of just shake it off. Did a little bit more of the training, but I was like, okay, no, that's fine. Leave it now. It's not even 24 hours since. At the moment, I can lift my arm. I can do all sorts of movements. I can squeeze. And it's fine. But there's tenderness. There, and it's not the muscle that's tender. It's the tendon that's tender. So I know if it's a tendon that's tender. Tendon. So if it's tender there, I'm like, okay, I need to just make sure that it rests up, it chills out. So my next bench session's not scheduled until Monday, which I'll more than likely just let go, sort of thing, and it won't do any really upper body sort of movement for, well, at least from the chest perspective, for a little while, for a week probably, to let it give it a rest, and probably back off on, say, pull-ups, or things that pull on that area of that tendon. So it might be leg specific. So as your PSA folks, just don't go rushing into your workouts. And we were talking about as well walking in. I think the importance of a proper warm-up is starting to become much more apparent to me the more and more I go in life. Back in the day, yes, you could have just jumped in and gone straight into a heavy squat or something like that, or a heavy bench. No longer so, folks. So,
now, it's not like Juan's never been injured before, so he couldn't have learnt this before. Not maybe those weren't necessarily related to warm-ups, and it was just the actual super heavy weights.
Yeah, but look, I am learning in the sense that, in the past...
Root cause. What was the root cause of this? Was it... were you dilly-dallying before the session? Was it your inability to adapt and realize, I don't have enough time? Was it that you don't have the practice of really warming up normally?
I think it would have been,
what was the main thing that you could take away from this to learn from the future and go, all right, I won't do this again.
I think the key takeaway was that under significant load, on the power movements, so velocity type movements, that there's got to be enough blood flow and enough warmth in all of your musculature, including muscles, tendons, everything, ligaments, to be able to actually perform the movement in a safe manner. And absolutely, as you get older, it seems, I think I'm learning more, that's got to be the case. So my inability there was to recognize that I'm going to be doing velocity power movements, and to do that, I've got to be at a certain level of warmth or warmed upness to do so. So that's probably something that if I was to do it again, I was like, if I've got 35 minutes or something when it's an hour workout, I should go, okay, no, to be honest, I'll sacrifice today's strength and do something else, which I can do, which we talked about it. But, however, so this comes into another point. Now, last month, you would have heard me and Mortalize talk about running. And that I eked in. I barely did my 25 kilometers. And I was away for a good week plus sort of the time. And in the end, I was able to do it.
So barely does it. Next month, what's the learning from this?
Next month,
I'll put in 60Ks.
Well, see, the next month is, so now we're on the 5th of November. Yeah. 5 days in, and I'm 20 kilometers down. Damn. I've ran 20 kilometers in the last 5 days. Now, nice, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm about to smash my previous month in literally a week. I'll probably do that by tomorrow. Awesome, it's going well. However, I think I'm not learning a crucial thing here, and I haven't encountered it yet. Probably because I'm not pushing it to 100%. My runs are at best maybe 85% at the highest, and 50% of a sort of jog. But I'm warm up 0. There's probably no warm up into these runs at all. I'm basically this is legitimately.
Well, I mean, if you're running slow enough, you can at the start.
Exactly.
It can kind of be a warm up.
So to give you an idea, I'm literally I'll have a little drink, probably a greens and red greens mixture or something like that. I'll basically put my shoes on, put my socks on. I'll walk outside the home, walk down the stairs, which I'm going to be specific. It's 15 steps walking down. I'll walk up a hill that's 5 meters. I'll turn on my watch for run and go and just start running. That's it. That's the run. It begins. And I'm probably running.
Where do you run? Are you running around that AFL field near your house?
No, I'm running. So if you know the area, so I'm running basically when I'm running at home, I'm running from my place to the bike path on the highway, and then running up the bike path and then running back down. So, which is kind of an easy one to do.
Well, one's trying to take souls by racing bikes.
Yeah, exactly. So that, or on treadmills at the gym. So that's kind of been the mixture. But I ran around the South Bank area today as well.
Yeah.
So those have been like open areas, which has been good. Treadmills as well. But yeah, my warm up is basically just like a slight walk and then running and then getting into it. Now, I need to maybe careful. I got to be careful that, you know, am I being blind again? So, you know, when it comes to the training at gym with the velocity training, I saw that I got hurt like that, and I've been definitely increasing my volume of running now to quite an extent. I'm just thinking, okay, I'm listening to a couple of videos and a couple of other runners. They do say make sure you do some sort of warm up. But in my mind, like, I'm running kind of slow anyways. That's sort of my warm-up. I'm not doing supremely fast pace. So to give you guys an idea, I'm running at the moment 3Ks in like 5:07 average pace. I'm running 5Ks at like 5-minute 15-second average pace. So, you know, it's not burning the house down in speed. But I'm doing like negative splits as well. So it's like the first K or two is like 5:20s, 5:10s. And the last K is 4:40s, something like that, right? So that's like sort of like the speed. So I guess I am warming into it as it goes through. So perhaps maybe that's right. But you know, I will be happy if there's a immortal out there, Boostergram or comment through. Am I just like with chest? Like obviously with my bench press, like I know about this from many years of training. But am I missing something crucial here with the running that, you know, it's going to come to 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers in a month? And it's going to be like, yep, you're gonna hit that injury. You're gonna hit like your legs are gonna fall apart because you're not warming them up or you're not doing the stretching. Clear one that David Goggins found out was that, you know, he'd do all this running and all this exercise, and it was coming to a point into his life, and he talked about it in his book that Can't Have Me, where he was becoming so tired and he couldn't run anymore. He couldn't really do lifting. He'd gone to the
weak.
He went to the doctors and they were like, "Hey, you know, we don't know what's wrong with you." And he basically
must just be weak.
Yeah, it must just be weak. And he thought that he was like, "Oh, it must be just like something that's happening in my body and I'm going to die like that. I just pushed it too hard and there's it. He was prepared to die." Until somewhere down the path, can't remember where. Someone told him like, "Oh man, you're like incredibly tight through your what's that thing called, your psoas, PSIO, whatever."
I've heard it. Yeah,
soar. Whatever. Anyways, we can look it up. In any case, he was just really tight, and as he started stretching and doing a lot of stretching routine, he found like a lot of his running and a lot of his training, he was just so tight that he needed to stiffen out and then or relax out, and then that allowed him to get back into it. Now, obviously, that's a very extreme case, but I'm like, okay, if I'm not doing my appropriate amount of stretching and that, am I going to find myself in a similar space? Look, I'm not hitting the extremes, so probably not, but I also just want to be careful. One of the things I'm starting to notice already is like, oh, my calves, they're sore, like daily.
Yeah.
Should I be really doing a lot more stretching for them and the like? So anyways, long story short, bootstrap me and tell me if you've got some tips for me on my trip.
My initial impression would be no. If you were either doing really long distance and a lot of it, and I'm talking
like 10K days each day.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that sort of thing, you know, hundreds per month. Or if you were going hard and doing those 60Ks as hard as you could.
Yeah, like if you're like sprinting these things.
Yeah, I would say, okay, yeah, then maybe you probably want some. But honestly, I've always found running to be, even though it's terrible on your knees in a long term, pretty low impact for me personally. And the only times I've ever hurt myself have been doing silly things like running barefoot and getting some plantar fasciitis, that sort of deal.
Yep.
And never big injuries. I've only ever had, you know, just kind of weariness in the knees and soreness, but never a pulled muscle.
Look, I will say I do have weariness in the knees for sure at the moment.
Which is to be expected.
So yesterday,
I don't think you can get rid of that sort of.
No, and look, yesterday I had
stretch all you want.
After, you know, so yesterday's point, I'd done like 17Ks in the 4 days, and I had heavy squats to do, and I'll tell you what, my knees were weary to do that. They were really weary, and so I still was able to lift what I wanted to at, again, very constricted speed. But dude, I was like, oh man, this is like, you know, I've got to be realistic. You know, if I'm really going to be continuing to do the runs and then my knee's going to feel maybe a little bit more woeful, is it going to have to be a case I'm like, okay, I have to really listen here and not do really heavy squats for a little while? Maybe that's the case. So So all of that's happening at the moment.
Dang.
Yeah, so tell me folks, tell me more lights. I don't want to get any more severe injuries, so help me out here, folks. Help me out here.
Check out our latest musing episode as well. We'll be talking about the mental side of all these training things as well.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
That was 3, 4, 6, I believe.
Now, there was something else I wanted to talk to you about, but I've completely forgotten. So there's another thing I want to talk to you about, which I was astounded by. And I'm going to go there, folks, me Immortalites out there, and if you don't like what I'm about to talk about, if you don't agree with me, if you don't agree with us, well, I'd be pretty surprised because I'm assuming most people who listen to us are going to agree in some part to us. But Joe Rogan had a conversation with Dr. Phil. You know Dr. Phil?
Yes.
Dr. Phil. For those at home who don't know Dr. Phil, I don't know how the fuck you don't know Dr. Phil.
Bald guy.
Bald guy.
Bunch of memes.
Yeah, a bunch of memes on it. He actually started in Oprah's show on like every Tuesday until Oprah was like, hey, you should do your own show. And he's been doing it now for 21 years or something like that. So, really cool dude. And if you ever listen to him talk about it, he seems like a really awesome guy, really direct to the point. Now, they were talking about a variety of things with Joe. One thing that I was just really interested by was in the US right now, the leading cause of death of 18 to 49-year-olds or 45-year-olds is fentanyl. Fentanyl overdose. Yep. And fentanyl is a synthetic opioid which they mix in with lots of other different drugs because it's really, really, what do you call it?
Powerful.
Not powerful. Like, it makes you want to go back for more. What do you call that?
Addictive.
It's really addictive. Really addictive, thank you. So they're just mixing it in. Now, whether we like it or not, or you want to get your conspiracy theory juices flowing, most of the fentanyl in the world is created by China. Most of the fentanyl is created by China, which ends up, by whichever way, in Mexico for the Sinaloa cartel and all of the cartels down there, who then mix it up into pill form and then sell it on to the US. And there were some stats that, now again, who knows how clear these are, but when they were talking, they were saying how the percentage that the DEA catch coming into the country of the US is about 10%, they imagine. And that number is about enough to kill like 100 million Americans. Something to that effect. So there's like a ton load of fentanyl that's going, and it's not, so the example they were talking about was, it's not like you're buying drugs and you're having them and you're overdosing. No, it's not overdosing, it's like straight up poisoning. Like there was an example that Dr. Phil was talking about where a girl who wanted to get some Adderall for her studies bought like an Adderall pill, had a quarter of the Adderall pill and died straight away. It was just like that much fentanyl, straight dead. Like it's just, she poisoned dead. And I went, man, that's wild. This is like genuinely wild. And like, what they were getting into, so one portion was, and I know I've seen a couple of people here in Australia do the same, is death stats across the world. So in Australia, people who are dying now from various other things. Same in the US with the fentanyl. It's almost kind of not being really talked about. Like as much as COVID was talked about, these are like things that are now killing more people. In Australia, I believe the statistics are that our death rate is going up now. I think it went from, I can't remember the number. Maybe it's going up.
We always follow the US.
Yeah, so the
with
death
a lag,
with a lag,
5-year lag.
So, but the death rate is kind of going up, not from fentanyl, but from just general deaths. And people calling out, being like, not being talked about in the media, like at all. Like nobody's talking about this. Why isn't it being talked about as much as COVID? Now, one part of me senses like, well, it's because there's no maybe there's no real way to sell this piece of media. Maybe it's the case. But it kind of concerns me. It actually did concern me, especially hearing that that ability for someone to just die straight away so easily. And what I didn't know about this, and I don't know if you know this either, but a lot of the what they called counterfeit drugs were being sold through Snapchat. It's through Snapchat that they sell it. Yeah. So Dr. Phil, and I think he was saying, go Google Snapchat drug selling, and you'll see how it's like cartels and that use Snapchat and emojis about how much you can buy, and Snapchat has a location tracker, very precise location tracker of where you are, so they can deliver to you in a very easy way.
Yeah.
I was like,
interesting.
Damn, and that's maybe one where I was going, this is slightly different to our generation, so I wouldn't be thinking like this is the way they were coming through. So anyway, I just thought that was of an interesting point, and maybe like a little info for people that hadn't heard that.
I'm not so sure about our generation, but we've never gone out seeking. Neither us nor our friend group have ever gone out seeking drugs. So
what I say is like it's not even if there was, my mind doesn't go to like that utilization for doing it. I guess so. I guess that's what I was saying.
Well, that's the thing. You need to be introduced to that. So
Sure. That's true.
It's not like you're just randomly on Snapchat and you find, oh,
hey,
this
maybe
is-
throughout. I don't know how people get introduced. Anyways, that was
Could
just
be.
an interesting point. One point of it. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the other one they were talking about, this is the one where I don't know if we're going to lose some listeners or not. So they were talking about the things that are now banned. I believe it said on the TV show, and in some shows that couldn't be said or could be said, right? And Dr. Phil and Joe didn't agree with this, and I don't agree with these words either that they were banned. So I'm going to share some with you that I'll remember off the top of my head. There was more, so you can go find this list. The words that can't be said anymore on the TV show because it's banned for whatever purpose.
So there's American TV.
There's
in
American, so
particular?
again, probably a 5-year lag to Australia, and something that might come for us as well. Man and woman can't be said.
What?
Can't be said. Man and woman. No, sorry, no, sorry. Let me correct that. Mother and father. Mother and father. You can't say mother and father because
You can say mother, you can say father, but not.
No. The use of mother and father is not allowed because
Where are you getting these?
this is from Dr. Phil, and he has a list. And do you reckon it'd be worth? Can you pull up?
I can try here.
Jeez, can you try pulling up like Dr. Phil list of banned words, something like that?
Sure, I can do
Dr. Phil list of.
I'll do it. You
banned
keep talking.
words,
Man.
Joe. Okay, so there was that one. So there was that sort of thing. Yeah, see if you can bring it up. It's on the latest Joe Rogan one.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other ones that they were talking about is blind spot. Blind spot is also a word that shouldn't be used because it can be offensive for those who are blind. There was peanut gallery. There was
Peanut gallery.
Yep,
What does that mean?
Well, peanut gallery, and what I would have assumed it was
Sounds
it's like
first world. Now, just the first thing I bring up is Dr. Phil guests want to cancel phrases like mum and dad for being offences. It's the heterosexism.
there you go, mum and dad. There you go.
So
okay.
they want this,
Oh,
whether
okay, so
this
they
actually...
haven't? Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they want to. Okay, so this is they want to. So it's mum and dad. It's
Peanut gallery
peanut
is
gallery.
now classist and racist. First world problem is also classist. Tone deaf is ableist. I like that. Mum and dad assumes traditional gender roles. Yeah.
Yep. So and the other one was like brainstorming because it's against people who might have brain damage because you're storming. Now, all of these words, and they actually said it on the podcast, which
I mean,
I
still
very
have
much
brains.
agreed with, and we've even talked about this before. This is it's no longer are you challenging. Like, it's not talking about enabling or that you're being racist. Like, that's a connotation you're putting to the language that's being used at that point. Like, you're just changing now, or you're not differentiating well enough language and what a word means to whatever value, whatever idea you've got, and you want to just place it on top of it. And I went, man, if it starts shifting to like that is what happens. So obviously that was that they want to do that, and if something like that started to occur as well in Australia, which it probably will in a few years' time, it would be a real challenge for me to abide by that. It would be a real challenge. If I had to go to work...
Fuck that.
If I had to go to work and someone told me, like, you can't say brainstorm anymore, or you can't make this sort of commentary, I genuinely would struggle to follow along with that. There's probably a point in the line where you have to be like, okay, you might find like joke in talking about something that's kind of obscene in some friends groups, and you'll go, okay, well, that's probably not appropriate for the workforce. I can get along with that. There's certain levels which I think we all can agree with. But when it gets to, hey, I might explain to you something about, the different sort of colours of Colombians that come from, or, another example of some other kind. And for them to go, oh no, you can't say that anymore. That's an ableist, or that's whatever. I'd go, okay, that's a step too far. I can't abide by this. And I don't know what I would do. Like I'm preparing, I guess, the mentality. Like, imagine if in 5 or 6 years' time, now we're quite lucky in the podcast, and we'll get into podcast 2.0, that if someone come and tried to cancel or kind of blockade the ability for me to communicate because of that, like, I'm starting to get to the point that I'll be like, okay, well, that's not probably a platform or an area that I want to interact with if they're going to be to that extent. That's going to be something that I shift to. Now, you said fuck that, so I'm assuming you don't agree.
I've
with
got a lot of thoughts on this topic. I'll try and list them off as quickly as I can. Number one is these sort of things, you know, I generally don't worry about that. Like, it's all mainstream media, that stuff, and I'm that system's broken. You know, maybe it can change around, but I very much doubt it. So I don't pay too much attention, and even just in our talking about it, you know, it's not actual legislation, it's just people wanting some things and whatnot. Here's one you might not know. I follow a fair few YouTubers just randomly. Some I use for Spanish practice, some for German and whatnot. I've noticed multiple of them not saying a word which you've actually said in our conversation multiple times.
Which is?
Suicide.
Suicide.
They don't say suicide because they get demonetized for saying that. So,
oh really?
Many a time I've seen them say hint around it, or they'll go, you know, leave a gap, or starting with S.
Yeah,
and I've seen this multiple times, and that is the kind of thing that concerns me. If I ever noticed myself or you doing that, that's when I would be like, okay, there's a problem, because you know, it's not too far from not saying suicide to now not saying mum and dad to now, you know, it can go on. So that kind of thing is more concerning to me, where I see people actually, and these are just randoms as well. You know, they've got one guy's called Juan something, and he just travels and does vlogs around the world. Another girl is GM something. Fuck, I can't even. I view them semi-regularly, and she does like a German Spanish. She speaks in Spanish on her channel, but she lives in Germany, and so explains like Germany in a Spanish way. Cool. You know, which is, for me, is like ticking off 2 boxes with 1 stone. So they're just regular people. They're not, you know, super woke or anything like that. Just doing. They've found some success and whatnot. Yep. And honestly, man, you're saying like you don't know what you do. You've already protected yourself as much as you can. Us doing the podcast is, you'll notice that. So what is one thing I did do with that picture of the kangaroo eating the man's asshole that you talked about from Mona? I blurred that on YouTube, because in that one I was like, I have a feeling this is gonna break some barriers, sort of thing.
Enrage the Google gods.
You know, I'll abide by their platform rules, and if their rules say, you know, no pornography, no things like that, my interpretation is that's probably crossing a little bit of a boundary point there. And, you know, same would be like, you know, pictures of child porn or something like that. You know, there's many different ways of why that's a bit weird and wrong. Well, a lot weird and wrong. And if it's like a cartoon image of that, it's not actually hurting the children or something, but you put it on YouTube, well, yeah, you're going to get your ass kicked for sure. So in that case, that's where I see myself, you know, changing something and abiding by, you know, playing by the rules so I don't get kicked out. But if you ask me which of the 2 platforms of use I care about the most, I would ditch YouTube in a fucking second. Like, I would not even hesitate and think about dropping that, and you know, the audio podcast is I like to gravitate to where you can get the most ability to express yourself, I suppose. The freest. I know we've talked about freedom before, and that word is kind of tricky, especially for you. I don't think I have as many problems with the definition
of freedom
of that episode that we did, and you know, if podcasting 2.0 hadn't come along, and I had seen, now there's no RSS feeds, now you have to upload to Spotify and to this other place because Spotify doesn't ingest, that's when I would start looking at, okay, like, what's the next freest way where I can get the most unfiltered information from other people. And I imagine a new thing would grow, much like podcasting grew when, you know, perhaps YouTube was coming along and other platforms were being a bit more restrictive. Not that, I shouldn't say that. YouTube wasn't restricting. That was a whole new medium of communication. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What actually spurred podcasting was it I should ask Adam about this. was podcasting needed at the time as a
means
method
to like share information
for the best method of sharing information of
maybe.
whatnot, or was it just he was ahead of the time, saw this technology and was like, fuck, this is it.
Let's utilize
this
it.
is awesome. So in conclusion of rant, this sort of stuff I'm not too worried about. I would worry about it if I saw you doing it, if I saw friends modifying their speech because they were worried about getting cancelled, and I would be worried if we had exposed ourselves to a platform where we could get cancelled like that. So, if we had a huge Instagram following and that was where we made revenue and supported our lives and whatnot, that would be a concern.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough, and I'm humble enough to recognize that anyone can get blasted for any given thing, no matter how reasonable you might think you are. The mob will come for you if given the chance,
they'll come for you.
And no one is safe from it. So if you don't put in some steps to protect yourself, decentralization, if you're solely reliant on a single entity like a company, you're going to get wrecked.
You're going to get wrecked. Yeah.
Maybe not completely wrecked, but you'll feel a lot of pain if you don't put in the steps. And I think we have for the most part done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've heard that from others, like the likes of the Tim Ferriss and a few other places. It's like he does it through the form of getting emails through his subscription service, because then he can control and move people where he needs to, and they can follow him in that way. But in a similar way, if you're attached to like one particular platform, again, YouTube, Spotify, whatever it may be, and you're locked in, and essentially they own your views or they own your audience by way of a platform, then you're in trouble if that ever changes. So
here's a perfect example of this, but not in such a dire circumstance. I've been struggling with Castopod and self-hosting for the past 2 years. I've gotten to the point, check out last monthly goals, I was looking at doing RSS, a real self-hosting from, I'm creating the actual bloody RSS feed in XML, and it's just too much for me. I can't reach that level. So I've kind of tapped out at Castopod, self-hosted open source level where I don't own the server, I don't have bare metal running in my bloody fucking house. But I'm on DigitalOcean, and I've uploaded the kind of Castopod package there, and I'm running it through that. And the Reseñas in Spanglish, so another podcast which I never talk about that I have is the Spanish one where I was doing book reviews, and I kind of stopped doing them as much probably a year and a half ago, something like that. Funnily enough, I still get more comments on that channel than I do for the mere mortals and the book reviews, I would even argue.
Wow.
It
still gets a lot of comments.
Look, and I can see why. It fills a very peculiar niche, which is non-native Spanish speaker interpreting English books into Spanish and doing a book review. I can see why that has a
certain niche to it. Yep.
And we joined Sounder. This very podcast, Mere Mortals podcast, was on Sounder for all of what? One day?
Not very long.
Which was when what was the trigger for that? You were looking at moving from Wooshka do you remember what the reason was? Was it we didn't want to pay?
I think it was. And I also talked to one of the people who were running Sounder as well.
Yes, that was right.
In the US. And I talked to them, and they were like, yeah, this would be cool. Potentially, we could do a deal or whatnot. And so we started looking at it, and then we just ran into all these troubles. And like, no.
In particular, the files size was way too big.
Yes.
Way too big. And so, but you told me about Sounder, and when I was starting up the Reseñas in Spanglish, I went, oh, okay.
Let's try that out.
Here's a free host. I don't care about this that much, so I'm just going to go for the pure free option. I received an email recently, and they've just stayed on there for the past year. They've hosted wonderful service, highly recommend. The reason I bring this up is I received an email from them 2 days ago saying, hey, Sounder's not going to do this anymore, like you either have to pay for it or we're maybe even completely shutting down the hosting. I can't actually remember what the...
Okay.
See if I can bring the email up in the
kind of language behind it.
Yeah, but basically it was saying either way I was up the same creek, which was, I don't want to...
something. Yep.
Yeah, this is a podcast I barely use, but I still want it. And this is where I went, thank God I've got Casterpod. You know, I've put in the effort, I've put in the time to work on something which is, you know, kind of seems unnecessary, you know, who's ever going to cut me off, you know,
there
whatnot.
You go.
Perfect. Here we go. So Calamin sends to me, to all Sounder podcasters, when we first launched in 2019, yada yada yada. This means we've decided to shut down the Sounder hosting platform on January 31st, 2023. So they're shutting down the whole thing.
Yep.
Can't even
utilize it. Yep.
And pay for it. So yeah, now it's like, okay, well I'm gonna have to shift this. Obviously, I'd still love to have that audio up, and now I've got the perfect system because I could switch over again. But then it's like, what if that platform closes down?
Yeah. So now you've got the ability to go, well, I'll just self-host.
I'll chuck it on there. Casterpod can run until RSS is destroyed.
Stop working.
Because all of this is backwards compatible. So I'm sure there's people up there who have created like a podcast and they put it on a server and it's just been there since 2011.
Yeah, since they
haven't
back
needed
at the beginning
to do anything. So yeah, I would just recommend that if this is something that concerns you, these sort of ideas about, you know, cancel culture and whatnot, I don't think it's really worth spending that much time on the, oh my god, look at this thing. That's more the doom scrolling type level mentality, and I'd more be like, all right, well, say that does happen. It's probably not going to be as bad as you think it is. Say it does happen. What can you do to make it so you're not personally exposed to it?
Yeah.
And you know, this can be through consuming as a consumer, just consuming from different places. If you're a producer, producing your content in different ways, and this is where I would just go podcasting 2.0.
Yeah,
it's the freest one, the most peer-to-peer direct one that I've
found.
Of doing it.
Well, look, I think that's a good transition to talking about podcasting 2.0. So, yes, that big chatter, and again, we're saying to people, you know, send us through a Boostergram, you know, support the podcast. You know, the reason we have been saying that is because it is the platform that enables us to talk to you directly in the way that we want to, providing the value that we want to provide to you.
You will get as many kangaroos with assholes eating men's assholes as you can take.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, how can folks really support us?
For sure. So there's many different apps appearing on the scene. So I would just recommend going to newpodcastapps.com and getting an experience there, because I do all sorts of things like chapter art. So this is the actual ability to surface an image on your app as you're watching. This might not be for you, so we also have chapter links. So if you want to scroll through and choose a link that'll take you directly to certain points, you can do that. If that's not up for you, there's actual links for each individual chapter. So when I include, you know, I'll include that link to the what was that news article about Dr. Phil in that. So in that section, you'll see that, and if you want to see it directly, you can click on that. And
honestly, that is powerful.
Yeah, When that gets better, I think that's going to be
phenomenal.
That's going to be huge.
It's now gone to the point that Fergus Crawley, so you know, he puts out videos on YouTube. So obviously he's talking about YouTube of his wintering or the training he's doing. And it doesn't have any clips, like it doesn't have any minutes by thing, and he put it in the comment for you to go check out.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people do that.
I still go like, just put it in the comments so I can like do the clip, so I can quickly go to the location and stuff like that. So I find that really invaluable. So the ability for you to do that is so good.
Yeah, agreed. That when I use YouTube, that is it's almost becoming a must-have requisite for me, that there's chapters so I can skip forward if I'm getting bored and whatnot.
Or just go to where you need to,
Yeah, exactly. So, go to newpodcastapps.com, choose any of them, and just, you know, get familiar with a different app if you choose to. I mean, this is the beautiful thing. You don't have to do any of this if you're listening on Spotify or if you're on YouTube. You know, you can stay there. That's fine. But we recommend going to one of these ones, and this is where we introduce the value for value. So we spent a lot of time creating this. Where else are you going to get amazing content about Hosky, about cancel culture, about tendons?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a unique show, and we value it a lot, and we just ask that you value it as well, and however much it can be a little bit, can be a lot of it, and we just ask you send that back. So share it with a friend, give us some insights into your own thoughts of this, and in particular if you want to support us monetarily, because this show does cost, talked about the hosting fees and whatnot. We are on Buzzsprout, so it does cost a little bit of moolah to keep this up all the time, and we just ask that you send that back. So sending a little bit of Bitcoin our way, and you can set it up so it streams per minute.
Exactly.
So
1 Bitcoin per minute. Feel free to do
Bitcoin
that.
per minute. Just do it.
Just do it.
Do it to do it. And that's my little recommendation for today. Hopefully, I've been thinking about. I should probably do some how-to guides. I know I've been saying this.
How-to guides.
Yeah, like what is a boostergram? What is a maybe
Fountain
a bit
has
more.
a lot of good stuff on that though.
Yeah, exactly. So
I would say there's probably enough material out there though of how you can get on board and
but
to be honest.
I suppose it's like I need to put in the work to know which ones are the best,
right?
And then be able to say go to this area.
And then if you don't feel like it's the level that it's needed, then create something for people.
Yeah, and I am better suited for the more kind of rambling, the philosophical type arguments and things like that. So yes, I'm still working on that value for value presentation and the mix of podcasting 2.0, value for value and lightning. I'm still working on that. So.
Yeah. It'll be to come.
But I will have gone to the Bitcoin meetup here in Brisbane as of this being released.
Yes.
So when I go there, I'm going to chat with, I believe it's Ben, one of the main guys, and see if I can get a spot for the next one.
Good.
So
Good.
I'll need your help as well in making that presentation, make it look nice.
Yeah, well, I've got some slides in there, but I just haven't done any more effort into
that's
it.
all right.
When is that session again? That's on Wednesday?
Thursday.
This
coming Thursday. It's
Thursday.
going to be in the city at the Antlers. It's near King George Square.
Yeah, I do know that
Antlers,
place.
something like that.
Yeah, I do know that place.
Yeah, so if you're free, come along.
Yeah. It's a call out as well for anyone.
Anyone listening in Brisbane, if you're curious about Bitcoin, it's a good place to come to.
Yeah. All right, folks, we'll leave it at that. Me Immortal Lads, I hope you have enjoyed the podcast. And for now, the Me Immortals are out. One out.
Karen out.
Good. Woof. Good.